Welcome to aTech for a new video. We're going to talk to you today about a sad experience that a solar thermal power plant underwent. This solar process is far from being decontaminized and known by all. When we talk about solar energy, we're typically talking about photovoltaic energy. This process consists of capturing photons of sunlight, attracting electrons and semiconductors, and thus being able to exploit electricity. But there's another way to produce electricity from the sun. It's from the solar thermal power plant. Thus, a large-scale power plant has been built in the Nevada desert. Unfortunately, the Crescent solar thermal power plant closed a few years after it was launched. There is reason to wonder about the reasons for this failure. The startup Venture Solar, backed by a handful of investors and the US government, set out to develop what could be promised as a major breakthrough in renewable energy. It was a concentrated solar power plant with a central receiving tower and the advanced molten salt energy storage technology. Based on the magnifying glass principle, the Crescent plant was located 200 miles northwest of Las Vegas and featured more than 10,000 motorized moving mirrors called halostats. Each halostat is composed of 35 mirror faucets measuring 6 feet by 6 feet. This gives a global useful surface of 1,200 meters squared and a total opening of the solar field of approximately 12 million meters squared. Each of these mirrors is precisely adjusted to hit the exact spot on the top of the tower containing a molten salt. The combination concentrated solar energy can reach temperatures of over 5,000 degrees Celsius. This type of power plant is generally considered to be more efficient. They have an efficiency of 30 to 40% compared to the 20% of photovoltaic farms. But what distinguishes these systems from traditional photovoltaic farms is that they also have mechanisms to store the energy they produce. Instead of conserving solar energy into electricity, they conserve the solar energy into thermal energy, which they can then store in a molten salt core inside the central tower. This storage tank is used to generate steam, which in turn turns turbines to produce electricity. To support this promising initiative, the US government provided more than $500 million in startup assistance. The plant was expected to produce more than 40,000 megawatts per hour per month and more than 480,000 megawatts per hour per year. Unfortunately, construction delays pushed back the timeline by several months. When it was finally commissioned in September 2015, the plant was only ran for 8 months before it had to be shut down due to the leak in molten salt storage system. Once that was fixed, the average capacity was only 20% of the original project at 50%. At an absolute peak of production in May 2019, the company only reached half of its original production goals, all punctuated by regular outages and equipment failures. The only plant's customer, Nevada Energy, closed its contract for unreliability. At the end of 2019, this project officially ceased operation. This raised the question of what went wrong with the Crescent plant. CSP technology, concentrated solar thermal, has some advantages such as storing energy after sunset. This technology is still very early in development's life cycle. Major fact is cost. When the technology began to debut in 2009, the cost per megawatt is concentrated solar power was extremely competitive with the photovoltaics. Aside from the various failures, it took several years to get it up and running and less promising results than advertised. At the time, the cost of photovoltaics was about $2 per watt. By 2020, that price has dropped to about 30 cents per watt. Unfortunately, the price of electricity to make this thermodynamic solar power plant work was 4 times higher than the traditional solar power plant farms. Nevertheless, if you take the adoption curve into account, you can replicate the same type of plant for much less today. The price of solar power has come down so much that if you go back in time to do a 40 megawatt per hour plant, it would have cost $80 billion in photovoltaic panels to build a farm of comparable size, but in today, it costs $12 billion, a reduction in price of almost 8 times. By the end of this operation, Crescent was costing Nevada Energy 135 megawatt per hour, while a photovoltaic farm located in the same area of Nevada was costing 30 per hour, which made no financial sense. Basically, it came down to the question of scale. However, no one considered the issue of low prices, and that's one of those engineering challenges of understanding scale. By building something at a much larger scale, they introduce a lot of complex moving parts. We probably won't see as many of these types of plants because of the price of PV has come down so much that it makes more sense to build future plants with these technologies. But there is still a problem. As we mentioned, concentrated solar thermal has been built in energy storage. The molten salt is going to stay hot as long as it does. It can continue to produce energy after the sun goes down. And that's not the case for the photovoltaics. So you can couple these plants with storage batteries. So, we need to look at the storage issue. In general, it would make sense to use PV and couple it with an easier and more efficient form of storage. Is the Crescent Dune experience the death kennel for the solar thermal? These type of projects will certainly be more difficult to implement in the future, but it's not over. New designs include alternative welding practices to improve salt pump relocation methods. This will reduce the need for pump well length and reduce the cost of downstream infrastructure. An advance like this could help make CSP technology more accessible to companies, and that's notably the interest of China Cost and Solar Technology and SUP Solar Project. It has exceeded its half-a-year production goals at its tower in Delega. In another example, BrightSource's solar thermal system in California came to fruition by becoming the world's largest solar thermal power plant. Although Crescent Dune immediately failed, the data collected from its collapse continues to provide valuable information to current and future projects in the hopes of making the technology more reliable and cost-effective. Nevertheless, there's questions about the future of this technology, whether it will replace the current dominant solar technology. The question of the government support is also open. Currently, this technology is very discreet, and it is not sure it can be used and make place of the world's renewable energy. In addition to the points discussed so far, the space required for such installations must also take into consideration. The weather conditions also play an important role. For example, it's not viable technology for Scandinavian countries such as Norway or Iceland with their low sunshine rate. So many point to push to consider solar thermal with great caution. However, we must remain hopeful because the new technology advancements and financial support to governments towards renewable energies promise major advances in this sector in the coming years. Solar thermal seems to be a remarkable backup solution provided that the shortcomings are corrected. But because of the space and weather requirements, SCP technology will only be primarily energy source in certain countries that have necessary conditions. That's it, we're coming to the end of our video. If you enjoyed it, leave us a little like and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss our next videos. And we'll see you soon on aTech.